Lights on, phone on airplane mode, and we are finally live. Welcome to another video on the channel, my tigers. I'm very happy to have you here once again with me for one amazing topic, which is the topic of the danger actually of pride, the quality pride that we all have, that we all possess as human beings. It's Alex from Tiger ADA, by the way, if you don't know me. My channel is about smart people that actually look for a way to improve themselves, not so much in the outer space, but mostly in the inner world. Because all the greatest teachers, all the greatest spiritual teachers, they show the way within, not the way outside. The message of the internet nowadays is to always look for the external things to make us fulfilled, but the answer has always been and will always be in ourselves. That's why pride is one of the most important qualities that we need to speak about in great detail, because it's not really spoken about, which I don't really like. Because nowadays the message is quite the opposite. People, the influencers that are running this space, tell you to be more prideful of yourself, more proud of your achievements, more a little bit like an egomaniac, you know, I have this, I have that, you know, look at me, I'm the big G, I'm the top G, look at my Instagram page, or look at the posts, or I flex there, flex here, this vacation, that girl, this car, that apartment. It's a never-ending cycle of just flexing, just bragging, and just, how do you say, inflating your ego. Your ego is like one balloon that is inflating, and at one point is going to pop, because it's not really true. Our ego is an illusion. Ego and pride are very closely related, but I'll try to focus myself, especially on pride. And I want to start off like this. It's maybe with my personal story would always be the best example for me to give you guys, but I've always been, and I'm still am to this day. I'm trying to change, guys. I always say it, and I'll say it in every video. You cannot change yourself, you cannot flip the switch completely, but you can at least try. And I'm trying to change myself for the better, but I've always been a prideful person. It's quite the irony, because I've always been also quiet and not so confident kid, but I've always had pride for the things that I have, the things that I have achieved, and so on and so forth. And how this pride relates to the real world is that I thought I have all the answers. Ever since I started developing myself, ever since I started looking for answers, looking for the truth, looking for information, when I started reading books or watching videos and podcasts, I thought, every time I thought I have all the answers, because every book is giving you a piece of information that is, you have this aha moments, you have this realization, and you start to think that you have all the answers. At least I was like this. And I was willing to defend my thesis, defend my theory in front of everybody. I was willing to argue with my friends, with my parents, with my teacher, with my schoolmates. Because I thought that from this point on, from reading this stuff in the book, I thought I have all the answers. And all the other people are something lesser than me, which is also a definition of pride. To think that you are more than other people. And how these two things relate: if you think that you are more than other people, you're not willing to listen to their opinions. You think that you have all the answers, so your opinion is stronger, your theory, your view of the world is more right, and therefore you're not willing to even listen to the other people. It's absolutely crazy, and I've been ruled by this. It's so weird, because pride is something that I've never looked into in myself, because, you know, the shy, the introvert kids, they're not so much prideful, or at least that's how society is conditioned to think. But no, it's quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite. And I'm going to show you further on in the video what is actually the right way. Because I told you this is not the right way to inflate your ego, to be more and more and more and more proud, but it's rather the opposite. You can probably relate to this. It probably has happened in your life as well. But every time when I personally flexed, every time that I bragged about something, every time that I thought that I'm the big deal, I've always fallen down. When I was a football player, I was on and off. My mentality was always changing. I was not the best mental player, for sure. I had some qualities, this is also for sure, but I've never managed to find consistency and good form. But the moments when I had good form, good spell of games, like 4 or 5 games when I played really good, I had good performances, I started to think I'm too much. I started to brag and flex about it. My confidence started going too much up, and I thought essentially that I'm bigger than what I actually am when it comes only to football. And the obvious thing happened, and it may happen also to you guys, is that the moment you start to think that you're too much, you immediately fall down. There is one saying, I cannot quote it straight away, but I think it was something along the lines of how gods want to test you is that when you achieve something, they give you pride. And usually most of the people, they fall. So pride comes before fall, something like this. Or pride gold before fall. I'm going to find it somewhere. Maybe I put one photo of it. It's really like this. Also, the same thing happens in school. When I have some good grades in some class, let's say I have 2 excellent grades in one particular subject. And then I think I'm the big deal. I start to play it a little bit arrogant. I stopped bringing my textbooks, my notebooks. And then what happens? The teacher says, today we have a surprise test. And I haven't studied the last 5 to 6 lessons. And of course I have the worst grade. I have an, how to say in America, F. Here is number 2. I have the worst grade because I thought I'm the big deal. I stopped learning, and this is the danger of pride, guys. That you stop learning. Everybody who is watching this kind of videos on YouTube, not only my channel, but all of these self-help, self-development channels, knows that we are lifelong students. And this is a lie that I bought into. I thought that when I know all the answers, when I know this particular answer to this particular question, I finish life. I know all the answers about life, and I should not study anymore. I should not educate myself anymore because I know everything. I have all the answers, and this is the greatest lie. And I think it was the first chapter of The Way of the Superior Man, one amazing book that I highly recommend. The author says that the life never ends. The problem never ends. It's an ongoing process, and it's one of the worst things that you can do to your mentality is to think that someday things will change. Someday things will end. No, life never ends. And that's the beauty of it. And by the same logic, we are students. We study every single day without any stop. And even if we find some great answer about our life, we need to continue studying and to be more humble. Because there is one saying from C.S. Lewis. I don't know who he or she is, but it's a very nice saying from the book Ego is the Enemy. A proud man is always looking down on things and people. And of course, as long as you're looking down, you cannot see that is above you. So, this is something that I'm also very guilty of. Whenever I got this answer, I thought that I'm smarter than anybody else in the world. Even my parents who have 30 years more of experience, I thought that I'm smarter than them. I was willing to argue with them about some topics, which is really crazy. And it's not that your parents are always right because they have more experience, but the point is that you shouldn't argue. You should be able to be open-minded enough to listen to their opinion and therefore draw your conclusions. Draw what is the right answer. But my mistake, and maybe a mistake that all of you guys do, or most of you guys, or some of you guys do, because we're all on the self-improvement journey, and we all watch this same self-improvement content that the people that are preaching are making our ego inflated, and we think that other people are lesser than us. You probably noticed about yourself, but at least I'm honest enough to admit it about myself. But oftentimes when I go on the street, I judge the people around me. I see their bad qualities because I want to bring them down. But this on itself means that my self-esteem is not really that high. Because if I need to bring other people down just so I can feel above them, then it shows something bad about me. And maybe it shows something bad about you. But pride is exactly the feeling that you think that you're something more than the other people. Guys, we're the same. Please understand this. I speak about this in all of my videos. We all have this internal value inside of us, which is constant. It's unchangeable. Now, depends in our life in what position we are. Some are more beautiful, some are taller, some are stronger, some are richer. But intrinsically we all have the same value, and we shouldn't look down on anybody because in general, the external world doesn't matter so much as you think. Really, it doesn't matter so much. What matters is the people. And people can be poor and can be your best friends, and it doesn't really matter that much. Of course, when it comes to money, there can be some disagreements, yes. But in general, it doesn't change the fact that you are friends with these people, you love these people. For example, your friends, they may not be the most successful people, but you love each other, and that's the most important thing because they're there for you. You have fun with each other, you've grown up together probably. These are the more important things in life, and this self-improvement content that I'm so strictly against right now, that I was part of it, I was making the same kind of videos. Now I'm so against about it because it shows you that high value man, you're the top of the echelon, top of the ladder, and you look down on other people. And it's the shitty mentality. Yes, when it comes to money, women, possessions, education, yes, you may be higher in the game. Yes. But this doesn't mean that you should look down on them. It's like when you play video games and when you're a higher level than your friends, does it mean that you're a better person than them? Absolutely no. And this is the same case with everything material. All the people around you have these good qualities about themselves. And it's not only about the external world, but this is why am I nailing so hard on this point, is that we shouldn't look down on anybody. Should be more humble. We should realize that everybody is on the same level. And this mentality, you may be afraid of adopting it because you think that, if I start to be more humble, then all my achievements don't matter. It's not like this, guys. It gives you the freedom. It gives you the light feeling inside of you that you're all the same and you're not in this race. You're not in this hustling battle every day with the other people, but you're rather collaborating with them. Of course, there's some people that want to fuck you up. These are exceptions, but in general, people are all on the same level. And as long as you do this, you'll be 10 times better than if you're with this inflated ego looking down on other people. Trust me when I say this. You may not be Christian, but please listen to the story. Every one of you knows Lucifer. Who is Lucifer? Lucifer was an angel of God, and he was the best at everything. He was the most beautiful, the most, enlightened, the strongest, the wisest, the best physical characteristics. And he was the God's favorite angel. But at some point, he got too much ahead of himself. He started thinking too much that he is the best of the best. And at one point, his pride got so big that he thought that he is bigger than God himself. Then he acquired 1/3 of the other angels and started going against God. He wanted all of the power. He wanted him to be the God. And he lost the war. That's why God sent him to hell and made him Satan. And he lost all of his nice physical qualities that before he possessed. You may not be a Christian, but the moral of the story is that when you, like Lucifer, you may have the best qualities, but the moment you start to think that you are too much, you get punished. Either by God or by the universe, but that's how things work. And in general, the moment you start to be so proud of having or achieved something, really proud. I don't mean to celebrate it or to have joy. We're going to speak a little bit later in the video about this, but I'm speaking about real pride, exactly this. Then it's going to be taken away from you. This quality, this achievement, this possession that you newly acquired. It is like this. It works like this. And this story, you can find the wisdom even if you're not a Christian. Lucifer, who was the best of the best of the best, started to think that he is up there. He even created a throne for himself. And then he started to look down and he thought that he is the big deal. And then that's how fall happens, guys. And I'm absolutely sure that it happened in your life many times. I'm absolutely sure because it still happened to me to this day. That's why when I achieve something, I try to be more humble about it. That's why when something happens, yes, I want to be happy about it, but that's it. No bragging, no flexing, because this shows pride. You want to look good in the eyes of other people, which is pride. Because if you know your internal value, the things that I'm speaking over and over again in my channel, if you know your internal value, that your base value is high, you don't need this external validation, external things so much. And if you know that you're up there with your base value, you don't need to elevate yourself more and more because you're already up there. But this is a very complicated thing. I'm still looking for a way how to combine everything all together, because these videos are on separate topics, but it all boils down to the same thing, that we all have this base value that we should be to actually remember that we have it first of all, and not chase it with the external validation, the external things, external possessions. It's such an interesting thing, but guys, but I need to find a way to make everything stick together. But by watching all of these videos one after one, you start to have a grasp on it, and you see how your life will get lighter and better each and every day. The next story I have for you is about Benjamin Franklin when he was 18 years old. Now, I'm not very good in history, especially American history, but I think Benjamin Franklin just got a job with some redactory, some newspaper. I think back in the day it was newspaper the most famous thing, and he was just writing something in this newspaper. But he was 18 years old and he was quite successful for this age, and therefore his ego inflated a little bit. Then he went back to Boston, I think, and met one of the most successful guys back then in this age in Boston, and they were speaking, and the successful guy could instantly notice how prideful Benjamin Franklin had got, how up his chin was and how he was speaking about himself. And while they were speaking, they were walking on the streets in Boston, and Benjamin Franklin was having this performance, basically, you know, flexing his watches, flexing his new suit, flexing his new job, how he's the big deal. And he was walking, he was so much in his performance that when the other wiser, more successful guy told him, stop, he didn't even listen to him, and he bumped his head into one low ceiling. So he fell down, and the wise guy picked him up basically and taught him one very important lesson that I think Benjamin Franklin remembered for the rest of his life, which is sometimes you need to stop. Sometimes when you go too much ahead of yourself, you need to stop, and you're going to avoid the bumps on the road. It's such a nice story because it's very simple, and it shows you in a more materialistic, more superficial, more illustrative way how pride really works. When you don't stop and go too much ahead of yourself, you're going to bump somewhere and essentially fall down. It's so interesting and it's so simple, and that's how things work, guys. That's how things work. It's so interesting. If you've read a little bit more psychology or watched a little bit more psychological videos, you've probably came across the word narcissism, which is a condition or a, I don't know, disorder, or however psychologists call it, when somebody is basically too much self-absorbed. That's how I would define it. Somebody who is absolutely self-absorbed. But have you asked yourself where this narcissism term comes from? It's the story of it's from the Greek mythology. In Bulgarian we call it Narcis, but I think in English it's Narcissus. It's one character that is so beautiful. Everybody is in love with him, but most importantly, he's in love with himself. So he's so much in love with himself, he's so self-absorbed that one time when he goes through the forest, he comes across one lake, and he just looks down on the lake, he looks at his reflection, and he falls in love with his own single reflection. Then he's so in love that he cannot take his eyes away from the lake. So he stays there for days and days and weeks and months. He doesn't eat, doesn't drink anything until his beauty absolutely goes away. His beauty evaporates, and he's no longer this beautiful guy that everybody loves. There are two important things in this story. The first one is that if you're too self-absorbed, if you have too much pride about yourself, if you think that you are the best thing ever created on this planet, and all of us have these moments when we achieve something nice, this is the moment when the gods or the universe is going to take it away from you one way or another. Really, it's so dangerous. That's why I make this video. I think this video is one of the most important ones, because it's very, very dangerous, pride. And it's very hard to go against the mainstream advice that you hear on the internet, to inflate your ego, to inflate your possession, to think that you're the big deal. But trust me when I say, it's really, really dangerous. The second lesson from the Narcissus story is that Narcissus is so absorbed in himself that he cannot even notice that everybody else is in love with him. He doesn't have the capacity to love another person because he's so self-absorbed. And everybody who has been in a relationship or has to deal with other people, I mean, everybody has family at least, everybody has friends. You know that the more selfish you are, the harder it is to love other people. It's really a game of compromise, of humility, of lack of pride. Relationships are very, very hard. And when you're too proud of yourself, it's one of the most difficult things ever. Now let me tell you the story of Genghis Khan, which is one of the... guys, I'm not very good at history, but he's one of the most bloodthirsty emperors, conquerors in the world, in the history of the world. He's, I think, Mongolian, and their empire was very big at one point. They were so strong. But we're not speaking about history so much here, guys, but rather a nice example of one of the best leaders who said to his sons and his generals that if you can't swallow your pride, you cannot lead. This is one of the most important things. Actually, I was, scrolling around YouTube, I was watching some videos, and there came one ad across. And from these master classes, I've seen one in negotiations, I've seen one in sales, and this one shows Jocko Willink. He's, if you don't know, he's one Navy SEAL, or he's military guy. He has a class on leadership. So what he said, the three most important qualities of a leader: humility, humility, humility. Humility is kind of the opposite of pride, basically, to see yourself not as something more than you are, but to your actual value, and to see that you're a person with flaws and mistakes. And the same thing is one of the greatest conquerors, leaders in the world's history. Genghis Khan said to his generals, if you can't swallow your pride, you cannot lead anybody. It's so interesting because also if you look up into his history, he was always so humble that every time he conquered another empire, another country, another land, he always was humble enough to take away something from there. He was always willing to ask the people that know more than him about the strategy, about the new technology that there is. This is so interesting because it's a humility that me and you sometimes we cannot have, but the greatest emperor of probably top 10 greatest emperors of the whole world history have this humility to ask, to be educated, to know where are his weak spots, to be humble enough to admit that he doesn't know certain things. It's so interesting. The guy who has all the reasons to be so prideful of himself and to think that he is a living God, this is the guy who is humble enough to ask for advice, to ask for new information, to understand that he doesn't have all the answers, and to further educate himself. That's how back in the day the Mongolian Empire was able to get stronger and stronger and stronger, because they didn't have so much of their own culture, and they didn't have so much of their own technology. But every time they conquered another culture, another country, they were stealing their technology. They were understanding how it works, and that's how they become stronger and stronger and stronger. They were so adaptable. But adaptivity comes from humility. Humility is one of the most important qualities that anybody who wants to improve themselves, to develop themselves, to actualize themselves can have. One of his most famous sayings is that even the tallest mountains have animals that when they stand on it are higher than the mountain. So even the animals can be higher than the mountain, and it's all about this humility mindset, guys. Because the humility is the cureness of pride. Nobody should be prideful. There is no achievement in the world that is worthy of this big of a pride, of this big of an ego. Ego is really the enemy, like in the book. This is from the book, Ego is the main enemy. It really is. And pride is cured by humility. It's so hard these days. It's so hard when we live in a world where everybody is flexing. On social media, everybody is flexing their vacation, their car, their girl, their job, their new suit or whatever. We live in this competitive world that is created superficially, but the way to actually develop yourself in the superficial world is through humility and through not so much materialistic things. It's the world works in such a way that it's sometimes what the most of the people do is quite the opposite of what one should do. It's really, really weird, but at the same time, that's how things are. Because if the most people do it, it doesn't mean that everybody should do it. And most of the people are actually concentrated on inflating their egos. When this makes you expand yourself like this, the way is actually inside. And not see yourself as something small, but see yourself as who you actually are. For example, me, I'm 22 years old. I need to see myself as somebody young, somebody who has a lot of things to learn. Not as this person who is so good. And now I was inflating my ego with my previous YouTube videos about self-improvement, because this topic is so materialistic and there are so many guys more better than me, and I was suffering because I was speaking about the wrong things, guys. I was speaking about fitness when there are 500 people speaking better about fitness than me. People who are just better than me when it comes to fitness. But now my mission is to spread this message. To spread the message of your actual self-worth, which is not attached to the worth that you have in the material world, whether you're a CEO or you have a lot of money or you live there and there. It doesn't really matter. This is the message that I want to give you, to humble you a little bit, but not in a way to make you feel small, but in a way for you to shake off and finally realize that you're up here already. And all of your achievements are just a bonus on your level of worth, your base value. And to emphasize further the danger of pride, I'm going to tell you the story of Rockefeller when he was young, who later became the richest man in the world, literally. When he was young, he knew that he is very good. He knew that he has very good qualities and he has a lot of potential. And listen to this. Every night, he was looking at himself in the mirror and he was saying to himself that he should not get too ahead of himself. He shouldn't get too prideful. He shouldn't get too complacent. He shouldn't get overconfident. Every single night he was repeating to himself, because he was aware of the danger of pride. He was aware that once he was so prideful, he was so good, he was looking at himself like he's the big deal. This is when the danger happens. He was smart enough to realize it young, and then later on he became one of the richest people, and I'm sure that, not one of the richest person in the world back then. And I'm sure that when he became that, he was also not prideful, or at least he was trying to not be prideful. Even though, if somebody who is not ready, like me and you guys and all the guys that are following the basic mainstream self-improvement advice to get money, like bitches and stuff, so on and so forth. If somebody like this is the richest man on earth, oh my god, it's going to be the biggest flex fiesta. It's going to be the biggest flex show. It's going to be the biggest inflation of ego you've ever seen. Really, it's so crazy that the most successful people and the role models, not the people that, you know, are successful and they are not the right example. The role models that we should have are people who are successful and humble. And there comes the story that I need to tell you about Leo Messi, who is the greatest football player of all time. I think everybody is aware of this, or at least top 3 greatest football or soccer players of all time. And he has achieved everything on club level. He has the respect of everybody. Everybody loves Messi. In Argentina, he's a literal god. But when he came to his new football club, Inter Miami, in America, there was one captain. His name is DeAndre Yedlin, very average football player when compared to Messi. You know, average, by the way, just a little brackets, average when it comes to football, but like a human being, they're on the same level. And this is why Messi is such a great example of humility, because DeAndre Yedlin was the captain of Inter Miami back then. And Inter Miami, when Messi came, and also Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets, they became so good that they won one trophy. But Messi ultimately became the captain the moment he stepped in Inter Miami's door, because he is Leo Messi, and they just gave him all the privileges possible. But in this match, after they won, he gave the armband to DeAndre Yedlin, because he was the former captain, and he offered DeAndre Yedlin, of such a hard name, to lift the trophy together with Leo Messi. What could he have done? One of the greatest players in the fall of his career, in the twilight of his career, he can just take all the glory, everything. But he decided to share it with a player who doesn't have even 1/10 of the achievements of Leo Messi. Because Messi is such a humble, such a down-to-earth guy. Also, down-to-earth is another statement that we use for somebody who knows their value. And we use somebody who is flying in the sky for somebody who has a higher ego. We like down-to-earth people. You probably... Okay, let's not get away. First, let's speak about Messi. Messi is earning approximately $1 billion from all of his sports sponsorships from his contract in Inter Miami. He's the main face of Adidas. He has shares of Apple even. He earns $1 billion per year. This guy has all the right in the world to be with this huge inflated ego, but he's not. He has mansions, he has many cars, he has a nice family, he's a traditional man, and this is what I like so much about him. He's so fucking humble, and he's so great. And this mentality, I'm sure this helped him in his career. To never think he's so good. And he continued training and continued playing And he's amazing. He's the best of all time. Really. This is the mindset of the champion. This is Leo Messi. This is a pure example of what we need to be like. Very good, very hardworking, but at the same time down to earth. And that's what I wanted to tell you before. We like people who are down to earth. If you want to be a more charismatic people, you need to be more down to earth. Of course, if you don't care, then this video is not for you. But we can sense this pridefulness, these ego games that other people are playing, and we don't like it internally. We feel like it's a little bit of scammy. We feel like it's not real. We cannot click with it. That's how things really work. We don't like egomaniacs. We don't like narcissists. We like people that are seeing us like something equal. That's what we like. We like when somebody gives us attention, is listening to us. Why? Because we feel on the same level. And ultimately we are. And the sooner we all understand that we have all the same value. And all the other people are equally important like us. And stop, which is something I really don't like, stop idolizing some celebrities. Stop idolizing Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, and all these American Hollywood actors and singers and influencers. And to see them as something bigger than us. This is one of the biggest mistakes, guys. You are not something else than Kanye West. It's just that he has probably achieved more, he has more money and more bitches than you. And what? Maybe he's less happy than you. Because he has paparazzi filming him everywhere. Success is subjective, but internal value stays the same because we are all equally important, guys. Really, really, I hope this message lands. Now, something very interesting about pride is that pride draws in defensiveness. Pride is when you are so proud of yourself that you need to defend your value at all the time. But the opposite of pride is to let go of this defensiveness, to understand your real value, and then there is nothing that you have left to defend. Because if you pride yourself on being a CEO, when you don't have this CEO position, then your value goes down because that's how you see your value. On the other hand, or if you pride yourself on being a Bulgarian or being a Frenchman or being a Ethiopian, it doesn't matter. Then you need to defend your country in order to defend your pride. The moment when real self-development, self-actualization takes place is when you let go of this defensiveness and to understand that there is nothing to defend. Because the real secure person, a person who is secure in themselves, doesn't have to defend themselves. When somebody on the street calls you, you're a fucking faggot. Okay, maybe it was too vulgar. You're an idiot. If you really believe that you're an idiot, you're going to defend yourself because your pride is here, that you're the smartest guy on the street. But if you know your real value, you're not going to even have the urge to defend yourself, but you would rather see the bad qualities in the person who is insulting you in the first place. This was something that I read from the book Letting Go, from David Hawkins. It was such a mind blow for me because then I understood how it really works. If you're really secure in yourself, you don't really need to defend yourself. You can just see that this is a problem of the other person who is insulting you. It's not your own problem. You need to really let that sink in. You need to really be secure in yourself. And it's very interesting because here I have some screenshots. There was one study by the psychologist John Amodeo, who made a study called Why Pride is Nothing to be Proud of, which is a study on pride. And he says, it's from his research and from his observation, from his experiment, is that pride is often driven by poor self-worth and shame. We feel so badly about ourselves that we compensate by feeling superior. What I told you in the beginning of the video. If you don't feel good about being yourself, being you start to bring other people down for a compensation. Because pride is the want and the need to feel superior than other people. It's really weird, but that's how it works. And also, this guy also states, we look for others' flaws as a way to conceal our own. We relish criticizing others as a defense against recognizing our own shortcomings. In other words, we try to put on the front the flaws and the bad qualities of other people, while at the same time hiding our own bad qualities and creating this competition between us and the others, competition for power and who is higher, who is superior than the other person. And this is such a sad way to live, guys. And I am guilty of this because I have always looked at the world as this guy has more value, this guy has more value. And this can lead you to some really nihilistic experience and to forms of depression. Because when you're 20, 21, 22, 25, even 28, there are a lot of guys that are more superior when it comes to money, success, and all this kind of stuff. But this doesn't mean that you should feel bad all the time, because that's how I felt. I go to the gym, I feel good only with the guys that are weaker than me and have worse physique than me, and with the guys who have more physique than me, I feel bad around them because I think that they're more than me, but they're really not. And when it happened, so I speak to them, I realize that they're such cool guys, but in my mind I hate them because I see them like my enemies. But this enemies, this war mentality about the world is something so nihilistic, and it can affect your mental health in such a bad way I cannot even explain. Really, this is so important to understand that we live in a collaborative world rather than competitive world. This high value man mentality is what actually made us less happy. I'm speaking about my generation because this is the advice that is pushed. This is the advice that has the most views. This is when you're desperate to know the answers of life when you're young. This is what you're going to come across. And this is what is making you really unhappy and really depressed. And as I mentioned in the book Letting Go, there is one very, very nice quote that you really need to listen. When you let go of pride, in its place they have an inner security and self-esteem. Many people try to substitute pride for genuine self-esteem. However, genuine self-esteem does not actually arise until pride is relinquished. So, if you are looking for, because people mistake the two terms, pride or self-esteem. Self-esteem is something internal that people cannot take away from you. Pride is something that is based on the circumstance. You can be prideful, you can feel like a really, really strong guy, really big ego in certain situations. For example, if you go to the gym, if you're big, then you feel good there. But if you come to university and if you're not so smart, you feel like shit. And your self-esteem depends on the situation and the circumstance that you're put into. On the other hand, when you have genuine self-esteem, it doesn't matter the situation when you're put into. Because even if you're the weakest guy in the gym, even if you embarrass yourself at university, you still hold your value, because these things don't matter. They're on the outside. Your inner value, which is unchangeable, it's constant, it's an all-time high. It cannot be changed. I hope that you really understand this, because it's so important. And then, that which inflates the ego does not result in inner strength. On the contrary, it increases our vulnerability and overall level of fear. When we are in a state of pride, our energy is dissipated by the constant preoccupation with defending our lifestyle, vocation, neighborhood, clothes, year and made of a car, ancestors, so on and so forth. There is the tireless preoccupation with appearance and what other people will think. So there is a constant vulnerability to the opinions of others. So, this is something that all of Gen Z struggle with, the opinions of other people. This is the way. Humility and letting go of pride. This is the way of overcoming this problem. Because pridefulness is defensiveness. I had one friend when we were kids, we were joking with him because it was so funny. Because every time we were joking with him, he got so defensive and so aggressive and so took everything so serious that we couldn't stop joking with him because it was so funny. And later on, the same guy, when he became a little bit older, a little bit wiser, he stopped taking things so seriously and he started laughing a little bit about himself. And what happened, the moment when he started laughing a little bit about himself, not taking himself too seriously, this is when we stopped joking with him. Because he kind of, most likely, unconsciously, he let go of his pride. And he wasn't so defensive. He didn't have the urge to defend himself because he kind of started understanding first things are not serious, and then to understand his own value, that these jokes are nothing that is attacking his value. And then we stopped joking with him. He got the result that he always wanted. Before that, we were always joking with him. He was always on the defense, always on the back foot. And it was even funnier and funnier and funnier, because this is a law of consciousness, that defense invites attack. If you're defensive, you're going to be attacked. That's how it is on the football field. If you go in formation with 5 defenders, you ultimately say to your opponent from the first minute that you are on the defense and the opponent is on the attack. The opponent is the superior than you, kind of. That's how it is. Pride is one of the worst things, guys. It's the worst sin in Christianity. And it's for a reason. It's one of the worst things for smart people like you, guys. Because it stops your development. It stops your spiritual improvement. It stops your financial improvement, your relationship improvement. Because you cannot see that you're imperfect human being with all-time high value, but imperfect character. And when you see, and when you make this separation with this distinction between the real you, your soul and everything that is you, and your character, which is Alex in my case, then you see that your life is not so serious because it doesn't affect your real value, your soul. Yeah, Alex can be a little bit stupid, he may not be the best in English, can be not the best at making videos, but Alex can improve. But if you look at things from a third person point of view, you see that your character, this is not you. Your internal value cannot be touched. And all this flexing, all this material chasing of money and success and all this kind of stuff is pointless. I mean, yes, it's nice to have these things, and of course everybody should have some kind of goals, but this should not become your God. Because by the God's law, even if you're not religious, God made us all the same from His image. We are all gods within ourselves. We all have the internal value and we don't need to defeat anything. We don't need pride. Pride is the enemy. Ego is the enemy. The way is humility. Because the word humiliation comes when you put somebody who thinks they're high up there and you put them down. But if you see yourself not so high, but you put yourself low in the grass, then you cannot be put down. You cannot be humiliated because you're already humble. That's how we're going to end the video, because it was very, very nice. For me, it was an absolute pleasure to have you here with me for this amazing video. I hope it's not too long. I hope it's not so boring. And I appreciate it so much if you watched it until the end. I'm going to use this opportunity to promote my online coaching, which is so helpful, guys. You cannot even imagine. I really have the belief that if you have some problems when it comes to your internal world space, not this basic generic self-improvement advice, but rather your own personal situation, then you can click the first link down in the description, and I cannot wait to start working with you guys. With that being said, as usual, we'll see each other in the next video, and stay tigers.